rewind. Kim lives in Crystal City now, having just moved here from Columbia, South Carolina, where she was a student and graduated in 2010. And is now doing her graduate studies at George Mason University, as Steve mentioned. Kim is the Rotary Foundation's Ambassadorial Cultural Scholarship recipient and did her study in Tanzania, Africa. And so she is here today to talk to us about her experiences. So Kim?
Thank you. All right, and I do have a PowerPoint presentation. I don't know if she's just going to want to say go to the next slide. So there's some pictures, some fun stuff for you guys to see from my trip. The 2008, it's not your fault, the 2008 part was when I was actually abroad in Eastern Africa. If you're wondering where Tanzania is, it's right below Kenya, and I was very specifically about 90% of my time in Zanzibar, which is a very tiny island. If you could go back to the first slide. Okay. It's a very tiny, it's okay. It's just a very tiny island off of the coast, and it's about 90% Islamic, and so that definitely played a large part in my cultural immersion. I have never been to a predominantly Islamic country before, but they have a beautiful culture, which I'll talk a little bit more about later. But I would also just like to open up and say thank you guys so much for everything that y'all do, because what you do and what the Rotary Foundation does allows people like me and other students and other young people to go abroad with these scholarships. I personally received the cultural scholarship, which is no longer in existence for the time being, but hopefully it'll come back maybe in the future. But there is also the academic scholarship, which I have a lot of friends who have done or are currently abroad doing. So thank you guys so much for all the hard work you do for fundraising for Rotary, because it allows amazing experiences to occur in people like my life. So I definitely have that to thank you guys for. You can go to the next slide. This is my Rotary Club in Zanzibar. It was a pretty small club, but they did some great service projects on the island, and we'll talk a little bit more about those later as well. But one of the things that really inspired me to apply for the Rotary Scholarship was what Rotary stands for, the idea of service above self, and that was something that I've really been interested in doing with my professional career, serving others, things like that. So that's what primarily inspired me to want to apply for this amazing scholarship. You can go to the next slide. This is just over in the left-hand side, that was the Rotary Club President, Gail, and then over on the left was another Rotarian. So we actually had our meetings on Wednesday as well. And because of the time difference, it was really ironic because we had our meetings in the evenings, but ironically they would be taking place right now because of the time difference. And the Columbia Capital Rotary Club, which was the Rotary Club who sponsored my trip, they actually met at 7:30 a.m. on Wednesdays too. So it must just be a common theme. Okay, and one of the really overarching themes of what I learned when I was abroad was the idea of family. And that was something that was rooted in the culture of Zanzibar as well as in the greater country of Tanzania. And the picture at the bottom is my homestay mom and her young daughter in the picture. And that was just, I lived with a homestay family over there, and that was primarily how I got engaged in the culture. She took me to a friend of hers wedding, which I don't know if any of you guys have ever been to an Islamic wedding before, but it's like such a to-do. It normally lasts over a period of a few days, and it's kind of like party after party, but it's a great experience, and it's just something completely different from anything that we really traditionally do in our country. So that was a great experience for me to have as well. You can go to the next slide. And the majority of my time in the morning, 4 hours a day, I spent at the Institute for Kiswahili and Foreign Languages, because with the Cultural Scholarship, you do study the local language of the area where you're traveling, as well as the culture. And I studied Swahili, which is the predominant language of Eastern Africa. And so that was my school up in the top left-hand picture. And the one right below that, those are two of my teachers that I had who taught me Swahili. And then over in the bottom right, that was some of my classmates as well as our teachers. So I used to be proficient in Swahili. Now I have, I say, basic proficiency in the language. It's kind of hard, especially when I was in South Carolina, to find native speakers of Swahili. So it was actually really difficult for me to maintain my level of language knowledge. But I'm hoping to actually, of all places in the country, I feel like DC would be the area where I could meet some native speakers and maybe pick it back up pretty quickly. You can go to the next slide. And then now I'm going to just talk about some of the different service projects that the Rotary Club in Zanzibar did, one of them being a career day. You can go to the next slide if you like. And this basically was a day where we had different professions come to this local high school and talk to the students about their trade or about what they could do with their future. And it ranged from teachers to doctors to lawyers to mechanics and pretty much all across the board. But it was a really great opportunity for the students to get a chance to kind of see what's out there and see what they can do with their career if they work hard and study hard. Go to the next slide. That's just another picture of some of the students in the classroom. All right, so being that Halloween just occurred, we did have a Halloween fundraiser event, and this is something that is not native to Tanzania. This is definitely a Western culture that we brought to the island a little bit, but you can just flip through the next couple of slides to see. That's my friend and I in the bottom corner. We were very creative, and we were Greek goddesses because we didn't really have much to work with. So we used sheets to do that. So, but it was a really great night. It brought together a lot of foreigners in the area, people who were traveling to kind of come and share this event, which we all really know and love, but isn't maybe necessarily local to the community. And then another really big project that they were working on when I left was a water project in a village called Machui. And if you flip to the next slide, this basically was a village kind of in the center of the island. The village was situated on top of a pretty big hill, and the people of the village had to walk about 2 kilometers, a little bit over a mile, every day to walk downhill to get fresh water and then walk back uphill. And so we were helping them implement a piping system to help pump the water up the hill. And if you flip through the next couple slides, so that was just some of the Rotarians and some of the local village people who we were helping out. Go to the next one. And then this was, one of the big parts of this project was that the local community was actually helping build this project, so there was a sense of ownership along with it. And so they actually were digging the trenches and implementing the pipes themselves with some technical help, making sure that it was all done properly. You can flip to the next slide. And then this is, in the top left-hand picture, that was their source of water. And for the time being, before the system was implemented, and so they would fill up big canisters and then take them up the hill. And I can imagine that would get really exhausting over a period of time, so we were happy to put that project on for them. You can go to the next slide. Okay, so this is kind of the end of my official presentation. I really want to get some questions from you guys. It's very hard for me to put, 3.5 months basically of my past into a 15 to 20 minute presentation. So I'd really like to hear some questions from you guys in regards to what you're interested in learning about or hearing about from what I did when I was abroad. But I end on this picture, which is Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania, and I took about 2 weeks off and I kind of traveled through the mainland of Tanzania. I went on a safari. I don't know if many people know that there's some pretty big things in Tanzania. Tanzania is kind of an unknown country. Not many people know where it is or have heard about it. But Mount Kilimanjaro, for example, is in the country, as well as the Serengeti National State Park, lots of other safari type of parks that you can do. But some friends and I were in the town of Moshi, which is a town very close to Mount Kilimanjaro. And we were staying in this hostel where it had like a really nice balcony view up on the roof where you could go, and I would sit up there every evening and kind of journal about the day. I did that pretty regularly. And the street that was right outside of our hostel was a pretty busy street in the town, and it had a huge pothole kind of in the middle of the street, like that could swallow a car. And so I was kind of just viewing around and seeing what was going on, and all of a sudden a car came and literally fell into this hole. Like the back end of the car was literally raised, and it was a car full of people. And I got very concerned to make sure everybody was okay. And before I could even act or stand up even, about 15 men had come from the surrounding area, literally picked up the car and moved it out of this hole, and made sure that everybody in the car was safe and okay and nobody was injured. And that to me stood out so much, because that is not something that you would see in this country on a regular basis. Like, if a car drove off the road, maybe people would stop and help, but it's not an expected thing. But in this country, the sense of community and the sense of family and everybody kind of looking out for everybody else was the biggest impact that it had on me personally, coming back to the United States. And so I like to end on that, just to share, what's really inspired me personally to get into the field that I'm doing now. Getting my master's in international commerce and policy will give me the knowledge base that I need to then go out and actually act and help countries like Tanzania and other underdeveloped countries progress in the right way while still preserving their culture and what makes them so special and so unique. So this trip has definitely, and my scholarship has inspired me so much to do and to get on the path that I'm going right now. I wouldn't be here without it. So again, thank you guys so much. And I'd love to open it up to questions and to see what you guys might want to know about it. Yes?
Well, I just